If you don't know it already, this is going to be the season of Stormclaw. It's in the best shape it's been since season 2. We've gotten so many buffs to Stormclaw recently that it's undeniable that it's going to be good. The absolute bare minimum that you can expect is that it's going to clear all of Torment 4 content with no problem. As far as how high in pits it's going to be able to push, that's yet to be seen. Now, if you're as hyped as I am and you want to see more of my content, don't forget to hit the subscribe button. I'd also appreciate a like and comment because it'll help the video. I'm going to be streaming live on Twitch at the start of the season, so make sure you follow there. But with that out of the way, let's get into the details. Now, in case you want to follow along in the written guide, underneath the video is a link, and it will take you to my Screamheart profile with all of my builds. You're looking for Poison Stormclaw, and I'm going to go ahead and go over the endgame build, because Stormclaw doesn't really have a leveling build. But I will be adding a mid-game tab, and I may even attempt to add an early game for you guys, just to make it possible. So how does this build work? First off, we've got the Great Staff of the Crone, which is turning our Claw into a Storm skill, and it's also going to be casting Storm Strike with even more damage than it normally has. I think it's up to 350% now after the buffs. It also makes our Storm Strike chain to more targets and hit more than once. So considering Claw already has a chance to swipe twice, we actually have the potential to hit 6 times in a single hit. We're also using Tempest Roar, which is turning our Storm Strike into a werewolf skill. This opens up a bunch of multipliers and also allows us to get our Storm Strike on the same page as our Claw in terms of synergies. We're also incorporating Bestial Rampage Keystone passive, which when you combine it with Wildheart Hunger is 90% damage, and I think it's like 80% attack speed for cap 2. If you don't know already, attack speed separated into 2 different caps, and we're basically going to max out both on this build. We're also taking advantage of the fact that they moved Direwolf's aspect to the utility slot, because now we're going to be able to use Grizzly Rage. So we'll get all of the passive damage from Grizzly Rage, as well as the additional damage from the aspect of the Rampaging Werebeast. This also allows us to use aspect of the Rabid Bear, which is particularly useful not only for the fact that it increases our damage by 80%, but again, it's allowing our Storm Strike and our Claw to synergize and both become poison damage, which means they're both elemental, aka non-physical damage. So we're able to use Keeper, which normally only buffs Storm Strike. I'll get to more on the items here in a little bit, but let me talk you through how the gameplay loop actually works. So basically, you're going to be using Claw and Maul back and forth in order to generate your shapeshifting stacks. That's going to be for Quick Shift and Heightened Senses. That also stacks up your Wildheart Hunger, so it's good to get as much of that as possible before you get into your Grizzly Rage. Now you're going to pop your Grizzly Rage, and that's going to increase your damage over the course of the Grizzly Rage, and as you attack. We're also going to be popping Hurricane, which is going to be defensive mostly, but one of the things that Hurricane does is it triggers our Paingorger's Gauntlet, which they actually fixed in this patch. So before, you couldn't crit with them or overpower. Now you can do both, and I'm assuming the way it's supposed to work now is that it's supposed to be 125% damage multiplier, but we'll have to see how it works in practice, and it's possible we might swap this out for Moonrise. Other than that, we've got Cyclone Armor, which is defensive for us, but also allows us to pull enemies into a tighter ball. And then Blood Howl, which is going to activate our defensive passives, but also if we use Blood Howl and then we don't shapeshift out of our wolf form, we get 25% damage for the rest of that duration. So you will get damage out of this, but keep in mind that in order to keep our stacks of Wildheart Hunger, we're actually shapeshifting out of our form, even though we're in Grizzly Rage, because of Earthen Bulwark, which we're casting automatically with our runes. For our Spirit Boons, we're going with Gift of the Stag, and you might think that Maximum Spirit doesn't make sense for a basic attack build, but adaptability scales off of Maximum Spirit, so this is actually really good. We're also going for Swooping Attacks and Avian Wrath to get more attack speed and critical damage. We're going with Bolster in order to get more Fortify. This just takes care of our Fortify, and there's not that much else here that's really that useful. And we're going with Masochistic, which with both of our abilities, having high lucky hit chance and being shapeshifting, means that we're going to be healing extremely quickly. Now, I already talked about how Tempest Roar is going to be making our Storm Strike Werewolf. That also makes our Hurricane and our Cyclone Armor Werewolf, which allows us to actually use them in Grizzly Rage, so very important. But this item also has Maximum Resource, which is really good, and it has Willpower, which is also very good. We're using Shroud of False Death because this gives us one more to all of our passives in our skill tree, which is extremely powerful. I don't remember exactly how many, but we have access to a lot of different damage nodes with this build, and this is just a massive buff. If you don't have this, you can technically use Mad Wolf's Glee or a legendary chest space, but this is far superior. Now, aside from the extra 125% damage with Paingorgers, we're also getting attack speed, ranks to basic skills, and cooldown reduction. These are all very good. Even the lucky hit chance for stun is nice for staggering bosses. Again, on the pants, we're able to get ranks to basic skills, so we're actually getting a ton of ranks to basic skills. We've got them on the gloves, we've got them on the pants, and we've got it on the two-hander. On the boots, we're focusing ranks to heightened senses, and this is just going to help us get extra movement speed and damage reduction. The shapeshifting attack speed and movement speed are not nearly as important because we should be pretty much capped anyways with our Bestial Rampage for the attack speed. And for the movement speed, we're actually using the seasonal shifting powder, which gives us a 70% movement speed, and that's pretty much all the time. On the Great Staff of the Crone, this might be something that I adjust later. For now, I think that the best thing to focus is ranks to basic skills, because you're going to hit the 100% chance for Storm Strike to hit twice anyways. But another contender is the Storm Strike's chain to extra targets, because the way it works now is that instead of chaining to each enemy one time and then ending, now it can chain back and forth between enemies. So having more chains means more damage, but this might not have any effect on bosses. So if that's the case, then it's not nearly as good, but it might still be the best choice just for how much it helps with AoE clear. On our amulet, we've got ranks to Toxic Claws, and we're putting all our points into that. Technically here, you can either do Toxic Claws or Envenom, and it's going to be perfectly fine whichever one you get your bonuses into, because they're both 10%. However, Toxic Claws is 100% guaranteed, whereas Envenom, if you're not maxed out on your critical strike chance, won't be 100%. For the third one, Quick Shift or Willpower is going to be your best bet. It's practically impossible to get a triple passive amulet, so do your best and work with what you can get. There's multiple other passives in the tree that are pretty useful that you could also get. Also, I'd like to note with the tempers on this item, keep in mind that Werewolf critical strike chance on these tempers is only going to be used if you still need critical strike chance after you've gotten it from every other source. There's a possibility that you might be able to put some flat damage here, like critical strike damage. And again, with the total armor, you may not actually need that armor, but if you do, make sure you get it. For our rings, we're focusing on attack speed, but secondary to that, we're going for willpower and a little extra critical strike chance, which might free up our tempers. But you could also do it the other way around, where maybe you've got a temper that has the critical strike chance, and then here you go for a damage stat. Or if you really need the extra survivability, max life on rings is also very good. For our runes, we're going with Igni Q. Like I said, this is to keep our bulwark activating so that we get our shapeshifting stacks for our Wild Heart Hunger. And then we're also using Bak Gar, and this is just giving us extra critical strike chance, which takes away how much we need in our actual gear. If you do happen to be capped on your gear rather than over here, you could run something else, either something that gives you damage, or possibly, depending on if I don't get enough passive overpowers to keep up my Grizzly Rage, I might use the Zon here in order to get more overpowers. For horadric spells, I'm going with Celestial Surge. I like this one because it pulls enemies together, so very handy for this build. And we're using Claw. The nice thing about using Claw is it's going to activate our elemental brand more often, but also it's something we're guaranteed that we're going to be using throughout the time we're on the build, so you'll always be using Celestial Surge when it's off cooldown. For our infusion, we're going with Corrosive Vapor. This is pretty much the only one that makes sense with Druid. There might be some other use cases for other ones, but so far I've just used Poison. Bloody Charm is one I use on pretty much every build. This is giving us Execute, but it's also giving our Celestial Surge a cooldown function, which is very nice. We're running Tendrilless Bundle because this is giving us a chance to immobilize enemies. And I like this one because we have a node in the skill tree that gives us 12% more damage if an enemy is immobilized. So it's just a nice extra bonus. Although we could potentially go here with something that removes enemy damage reduction or that kind of thing. Again, shifting powder for the extra movement speed. For our gems, we're going with Sapphire on the armor just to get as much willpower as possible. And for our seasonal gems, we're going with Scornful Light for an extra 20% damage. Like I said before, the rabbit aspect is making it to where even our claw is now elemental, so that damage works for both. We're going for Idle from Below. This is giving us extra max life and primary stat, very important. An elemental brand is allowing us to poison enemies with our infusion damage type, and a chance to trigger a secondary effect. If you want to read more of the details, make sure you click on the link underneath this video. We've also got an attack speed breakdown section, Mercenaries, and if I have any changes that happen later, I'll add them here. And actually for the attack speed, I'll just cover it very briefly. Cap 1 has things like gear affixes, Moonrise aspect, attack speed elixir, Paragon nodes, swooping attacks, and enhanced claw. Cap 2 has stuff like Bestial Rampage with the Wild Heart Hunger, and this is going to cap this out anyways, so you don't have to worry about it too much. There's a lot of options in the Cap 1, so you should be capped on both pretty easily. For our skill tree, we're going to be getting our Claw and our Storm Strike maxed out. For our Storm Strike, we're going for the Vulnerable. Technically, you can solve for Vulnerable with your Horadric spells, and then you could go for the additional 2 targets, but I think that this might be the better way to go just because it's a little bit more efficient. And for our Claw, we're going for the Wild Claw for that second chance to strike. In our core skill tree, we're just getting Heart of the Wild, and we're maxing that out. This is giving us max spirit, which increases the damage with the adaptability. In our defensive section, we're actually getting quite a bit. We're getting Earthen Bulwark, and we actually don't need this point here. I'll take that out after the video. And I'll pop that point in probably right here, just for some extra resistances. But yeah, keep an eye out for that one, because you are unstoppable the entire time you're in Grizzly Rage now. For Cyclone Armor, we're going for Preserving so we can pull enemies in. It also increases our damage reduction, which is pretty nice. We're maxing out Backlash for some extra damage when we use our defensive skills. And we also are increasing our survivability when we use them. For Blood Howl, we're going down to Innate Blood Howl. And this is where that 25% damage I was talking about comes from. Down in our companion section, we're going with Nature's Reach only because I think that the chain might hit enemies and make this occasionally worth having. We don't have that many important things that we need to go into, but feel free to move these if you feel like you're not getting much use out of them. We're also maxing out Feral Aptitude for more damage. I went ahead and maxed out Endless Tempest because we only have one temper for Hurricane duration, and preferably we'd keep this up all the time for our Pain Gorgeous Gauntlets. But there's potential that the cooldown from our Catalyst is making it to where we don't even need this. So again, if you don't need the points, feel free to move them. For the Hurricane, we're going over to Savage Hurricane just for damage reduction. Down here, we're maxing out Envenom and Toxic Claws. These are both extremely good. Both of these are 30% for the 3 points. So if you get several points on your amulet for these, plus the extra from the Shroud, you're going to have a ton of damage just from these two. Down in the ult section, we're going with Max Defiance, Max Natural Disaster, and Max Resonance. Resonance is only 6%, and Natural Disaster only works when enemies are immobilized. So both of these are optional, but it's just that little bit of extra damage, so I prefer to take it. We're also going with Quick Shift. Make sure you stack these up before you use your Grizzly Rage. Same thing for Heightened Senses. And then for our Grizzly Rage, I'm only going 1 point right now. You could go 5 points here and take some of the points out from the other places I was talking about. That would allow you to hit your armor more easily because they added 30% armor to the rank 5 for this. And it would decrease the cooldown in case the ult ends up running off. So keep that in mind. Finally, for our Keystone passive, I'm going with Bestial Rampage. And like I said before, this is increasing our attack speed by a ton, and we're getting a lot of damage out of it, so very good for us. For our Paragon boards, we're going to start with Keeper on the first board. Moving up from here, we're going to be going with Spirit on the Heightened Malice board. Then we're going to move over to the left. We're going to throw on the Sinister Tendrils board, where we're using Earth and Sky. Back across Heightened Malice to the right, we're grabbing our Thunderstruck board, where we're putting Fang and Claw. Moving down from here, we're going to be putting on our final board, which is Lust for Carnage. And here we're using Headhunter. Don't forget that you get extra damage out of this Max Spirit, because I forget about that stuff often. For the Mercenaries, I recommend going with Rahir for your main, especially if you need either armor or resistances. If you need resist, you can go on the right side, and if you need armor, you can go on the left. Both of these have a damage option at the bottom. And then for the reinforcement, I like Variana for the attack speed, but you might get to a point where you don't need it anymore. So make sure you refer to my Mercenary section at the bottom of the guide in case you want to see what other options there are. And for the opportunity, I'll just put any skill here. I seem to have left it blank. As you can see, I've done a lot of builds for Druid this season, so make sure you check out my other written guides, and I'll be putting out more videos very soon. Let me know which ones you're most excited to see below, and I'll see you guys in my next video. Thanks for watching. Daddy Druid out.
Subscribe to Scream Heart. He's more than an old fart. He makes lots of fun builds. I promise his streams chill. He should probably be faster. Come watch this disaster.